Welcome back to the Pontio Podcast. In today's episode, we have Tom with us, who is a MSK Band 5 physiotherapist. So welcome, Tom.
Thank you very much.
That's okay. So just to get started, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey from uni to where you are now?
Yeah, so I started by doing an undergraduate degree in sport and exercise science and fell in love after I went on placement year out into Dublin. Worked alongside physiotherapists, biomechanists and S&Cs. Fell in love with physio, started applying for master's degrees across the country. Got accepted to Southampton, just finished my 2-year master's in January this year, and have recently started my Band 5 MSK position in the last two to 3 months.
Oh, brilliant. So what made you want to go into physiotherapy and do your pre-reg masters?
So I originally at the age of 16 wanted to come into physiotherapy. I shadowed a couple of private physiotherapists. I also got to work with an MS clinician in the community setting, and it showed me the different ranges of physiotherapy, and it's not just the classic sport MSK related. So I wanted that nice broad understanding before I went in. I liked sport when I was at uni, so decided to go the longer route because I knew there was the option of doing the pre-reg masters. So I thought I would become a more rounded clinician, have a better understanding of exercise prescription, how the body adapts in general to sporting settings, and in general the top elite athletes, that then can be applied to the general population, which I think has stand me in a lot better stead long term, and at least in this initial start of my career, and hopefully it will long term help with a lot of other things as well. But yeah, always wanted to be a physio. I've loved helping people, making them understand their problems, their conditions, giving them little fixes here and there just to sort of point them in the right direction. Because I think that's the biggest thing. We're just there to guide. We're not there to be superior to them. We guide them along their process of healing.
Yeah, it's a lovely way to phrase it. So going into your first Band 5 position, when did you start applying for that during your course?
So I started applying well into like a year in advance sort of time. So I was going 8 to 9 months. That's what we were told to do. However, at that time I was applying for rotations. I was applying for rotations purely because I was just like, I want to get in, get a job, get some experience. However, I wasn't getting much luck with any of them, wasn't going through to interviews and things like that. So the only interview that I made through was the static position that I've got today. So it is, unfortunately, to everyone applying out there at the moment, it's tough. Keep going. Something will eventually come up for you, and you've just got to take it with both hands. I always knew I wanted to be more static than rotational. So when the statics did come up, I applied. I thankfully got the interview with the trust that I'm in at the moment, but I had other statics that I was rejected from and didn't make to interview. So it's just that classic, keep going, you will get there eventually. It's just a long slog at the moment with the amount of people coming out of physio and the amount of jobs they have in the NHS at the moment.
But luckily, there is some movement happening now that we've seen, so that's good. That's promising, at least.
Yeah, a lot more movement happening now, and it goes through waves. So in the certain areas, like just 20 minutes away from me, it goes in every 4 or 5 months. They start bringing jobs out, and then the other area, the other side, it's sort of also those sort of times. And then when you're looking London way, all of them, they come in rounds and batches. So don't worry if you miss that first one. They normally come out with more, and their freezes are slowly stopping from what I hear within my trust.
So how many applications do you think you sent, roughly? If you can
Honestly, I think it was upward of 40.
Okay.
That's including a few Band 3s and Band 4s as well, because we got told it's better to get your foot in the door with a Band 3, Band 4, and then you can work your way up. So there was 3 in my cohort that did that and are now Band 5s, because they basically got given a Band 5 because of them working in the hospital and understanding the system. So if that is the first way and you're fresh out of uni, done it as an undergrad, I'd highly recommend looking at Band 3s, Band 4s to get that confidence, but Band 5s as well. You just keep going. You'll get there.
Is there anything you would have changed going back, though, when you were in that applying phase, or do you think you've done it the right way for yourself?
Potentially been a bit more specific with a few things, or potentially applied to less at the
Okay.
same time. I think I very much started just generically throwing emails out, applications, and not being really specific to what they were targeting or wanting. So that
Hmm.
probably meant I was getting a lot more rejections than I could have or should have. But it is tough because I did get a few like, oh, am I actually right for physio when you're getting through that many rejections? And I think
Hmm.
what I learned from it is just keep your head down. You can feel a little sorry for yourself, but keep going. You will get there eventually. And like I have proven, you do get the other side to it.
Yeah, it's really promising to hear. So
Mm.
what was that first interview like for you? How were you feeling? What were you expecting to what actually happened?
Yeah, I was very nervous, I won't lie. I was very lucky when one of my placements, I got on very well with my supervisor in the MSK placement, and he was very happy to be a reference and support and help me through the interview process. So I sent him a text message and he gave me a list of information or tips and tricks to prepare for the interview. So I sort of went through all of those and felt very prepared. And I think he was very good. It was show you're confident but not cocky. I understand that you won't know everything, but are willing to learn about everything is the biggest thing I think they want to see when you're a band five. And it's all
Hmm.
about the management, using your other experiences. So your specialists, your band sevens, your ERIs, your band fours, band threes to help manage your caseload a little better. If there's classes, referrals into the community setting and things like that, that might be better for you to help manage with your caseloads.
Yeah. And was there any questions in the interview that caught you off guard, would you say?
Um, Funny enough, I did ask my six that did the interview. I asked what the score was, and they told me the questions I dropped on, and it was around specialists and referrals around ERIs and to other systems, which basically, on the reflection, they said you wouldn't really know about those kind of things unless you were in the job or had done the job before or elsewhere. So those little things that dropped me off from getting full marks were things they were expecting majority of people to drop marks on,
Yeah.
not be the obvious stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Maybe even looking at how you respond to a question like that and how do you deal with that pressure, maybe. Yeah. So
yeah,
not,
exactly. I think it
yeah.
was a question around imaging. A patient comes in and wants imaging straight away. How do you deal with it? And then
Hmm.
I did well, but there were certain things they were still looking for that, again, with that experience, you get better at explaining
Hmm.
how and why potentially it's not the best thing to get imaging straight away.
Yeah. And did you have any tips to like settle any nerves before or maybe during the interview?
Um, yeah, I think I'm quite a confident person, so I just let myself have a few breaths normally and use positive affirmations is what I like to use. I know that doesn't work for everyone, but if you go in with the positive, I'm going to do well in this interview, you're probably more likely to do better than you would if you didn't think positively. It's really tough. Interviews are not fun, but the biggest thing is practice them.
Hmm.
Practice questions with senior lecturers, other classmates, other people, potentially other band fives. If you know any that are already in the position, they
Hmm.
can help. And just use as much as you can support wise to calm those nerves to make it feel more routine, even though it's
Yeah.
not routine.
Almost just treat it like a normal exam at uni, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's so hard to do though when you've not had an interview for so long and you've been struggling to get to them. You treat what the one you get really big, but the more you do, the better you become at them.
Yeah. And so then moving forward, so you've got that first job. What was the biggest shock, would you say, starting your first week?
Oh, I think for me it was the pathways in terms of how to and when to refer on to your specialists and when actually physiotherapy and treatment might needed further investigation for their scanning and also steroid injections and things
Hmm.
like that if they were appropriate at certain times. Which was quite a big learning curve. I mean, I was learning a new system as well. It wasn't a system for notes that I'd used before, so that's a pretty big learning curve. There was lots of clicking, but once you know where you're clicking, it's all fine. It's just getting used to the clicking.
Yeah. Okay. And did you ever struggle with that imposter syndrome people talk about in that first few, maybe even still feeling it now, but yeah, first few weeks of being a physio?
Yeah, it goes through phases. I think you go through periods where you get really nice patients and it's not textbook, but it's a little simpler. And then you get the next one that completely throws you for six. And you're just looking at yourself going, hang on. Oh, I was feeling really good about myself and how I was doing as a physio. And then actually you get into there. And I think that's part of the career. I think that's part of being a good physio as well, is still having that, because it gives us the explanation and knowledge that we don't know everything. And I think the biggest thing, if you can always be a curious physio, curious about your diagnosis, curious about questioning, furthering, getting deeper into why someone's experiencing those symptoms, you're going to be a better physio than just taking things at surface level. So I think that imposter syndrome is it's a tough thing to deal with, but I embrace it and take it in my stride and go, actually, this is part of developing. You're
That
gonna
learning
not
curve. Yeah.
exactly, and you're always, even I think sevens and eights sometimes have those
Yeah.
feelings. So I think that's the point. You're not going to know everything. And my
Yeah.
seven was really good at saying that. He's like, you're a new band five. We're not expecting you to be pushing to be a band six within the first month here. You're a brand new band five. You're learning. That's all we want. We just need you to be safe. And I think if you keep remembering that, remember your red flags, screening, appropriate referrals if they are red flag, that's the biggest thing that keeps you safe as a physio, and clinicians trust you to then take more cases and more difficult cases on.
Yeah. So my next question is, it might differ depending on what NHS trust you're part of. But it'd be interesting to know what it's like for yourself in terms of supervision training that's scheduled out into your week. Could you talk a bit more about that for us?
Yeah, so we've recently merged trusts, like a lot of other places. I think a lot of mergings going on to reduce costs and things like that. So it has changed recently, but I get an hour every fortnight. So that can be either split as a half an hour once a week or 40 an hour every 2 weeks, which I do at the 2 week way, just because I prefer bringing more cases to my supervisor and having a chat. My supervisor is very relaxed in terms of how he does the supervision. It's much more chatting, just like we are right now. Oh, actually, I've got a problem. I was rehabbing this shoulder. It's not responding the way I want it to. And then they go, oh, have you thought of this as an exercises? And I go, no, I haven't actually. And then you start with those with them. And then they sort of guide you along those pathways. And then they say, oh, how's your caseload management? Oh, have you thought of referring to the ERI or the TA? And oh, what about that one for a class? And it's just helping with some of those caseload managements. I'm really lucky in my trust. We have clinical skills facilitators. So they are band sevens that don't really have a caseload. They are literally there to ask questions. So if you get stuck and you can't find your seven or a six or someone else to run something by, they're always on Teams or in the clinic. You just walk in and say, I've got a problem. Can I talk this through with you? I feel extremely supported in the trust that I am. So that helps. It's got a very good question asking basis, in like no one is ever to made feel little or small about or stupid for asking a question, even if it is potentially as simple, what rehab would you do with this? I'm stuck. They are very much right, just try that, see what happens. Yes, so in terms of the supervision, we've got lots of it. They're very good at asking how you're getting on weekly. We've got individual clinic rooms as well, so we come out of our clinic rooms a lot, and that's when a lot of just chatting generally. How you getting on? Have you done this? Have you thought of this? So I get a lot of like informal supervision throughout the week or throughout the day without really realizing it. So that's quite useful.
Yeah, and what would you say is the hardest thing of being a band five?
I think it's that feeling like I still don't know everything. It's tough because you've obviously just started in your career and you want to progress, learn loads, but it's finding and building that way that you're not pushing yourself to burn out or pushing yourself too hard too early. you're going to start getting patient mileage just by being in the job and being qualified. We all know when we're on placement by week 6, if we were that kind of thing, or by the end of it, we were all like, oh, brilliant, I could push on, I'm feeling good about myself. And then you go back into uni, learn more, and then you feel de-skilled when you get out. That doesn't happen as a band 5. You feel like you're getting that day-to-day touch basis with patients and learning how to phrase things differently because it didn't work with one patient, then it works with another, learning how to do your pain analogies with everyone and things like that. But generally, yeah, I think I've gone a bit off topic there.
No, you haven't at all. So just a couple of questions now, just general advice for students. So if you were to go back onto your final placement, is there anything you would have done differently to try and set you up for your next, for your future career that you're in now?
Not particularly. I felt like I'd prepared. I think being on the Masters, as you probably know, placements were over the summer. We didn't really get much holiday. My first 2 placements, I had 2 days off between the 6 weeks. So I was on an LD placement straight into Basingstoke ICU acute placement. So there were 2 very different drastic changes. So I think you learn on the fly quite quickly. You've got to change your perspectives and things like that, which would be similar to people in rotations. But generally, I think be as prepared as you can, do clinical, learn your basic conditions if you're going into MSK. So rotator cuff related shoulder pain, lower back, GTPS, get a basic understanding of some of the orthopedic protocols because you're going to see them. You're going to see ACLs, you're going to see shoulder stabilizations, and then you're going to see some funky ones that you won't have seen before or heard of before as well. And I think generally being as reflective as you can, whether that's during the placement and verbally to your supervisor or post and in your day off or in your study days. Doing that is really useful because it starts picking out points where you go, actually, I got a bit of gap in that knowledge, or, oh, I didn't actually feel that confident when I was doing that handling. Right, I might need to ask my supervisor, can I just practice this sort of handling? And it's, again, never be afraid to ask questions. And I think the biggest thing in the MSK is get your red flags under, get your good control, common conditions, know a few things, some exercises, how to prescribe, what are the keys, what to do when you suddenly get a neuro-y patient. What would you do? Because it's quite panicking sometimes when you get someone with really brisk reflexes, a positive clonus and positive hospital, and you're like, ooh, what do I do? Obviously speak to your supervisors and things like that. They're not expecting you to be able to do the following steps, but understanding what those positives are, so you know where to go as soon as you get into those situations. And remember, patients aren't going to die in front of you. You can get built up quite easily when you see some of these, because obviously in terms of physio and red flags, they are quite serious conditions, but they're not considered serious compared to your heart attacks, your strokes and other things like that. So I think that phrases it a little bit nicer sometimes when you think, actually, they'll get seen in the right direction. You just got to do it the right way.
That's really good. So we're going to move on now to the quick fire questions, if that's okay, and then we'll end the podcast from there. So without further ado, so the first question is, one word to describe your first week at work.
Chaos.
Biggest interview tip.
Confidence.
One thing you'd wish you'd known before graduating.
Workload.
Best way to learn as a band 5.
Individual, but for me, kinesthetic.
One thing students worry about, but they shouldn't.
Serious patients.
One piece of advice for every student listening today.
Prepare.
One thing students don't worry enough about.
Exercise.
And if you could go back and speak to your younger self in the first day of uni, what would you say?
Enjoy it more.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Tom, for joining onto the Pontio Podcast, and I wish you all your success in your career.
Thanks very much. It was a pleasure doing this today. Really appreciate it.
That's okay. See you later.
Bye.